Welcome everyone, my name is Fabrizio Ricciardelli, I'm the director of Kent State University Florence, and it is a pleasure and an honor to be here today in front of one of the most beautiful buildings in the city of Florence, Palazzo Vecchio, the political heart of the city, the place where everything happened in the past, in the Renaissance, in the place and in the moment in which the joyful quantity of beauty in terms of arts was created by the republicanism of Florence. So in the past, Florence was a republican system, and the heart of its proto-democracy was Palazzo Vecchio, Palazzo De La Signoria, previously named. Signoria in the Renaissance meant the political office which controlled the city and was expression of the guilds. So in other words, political members of the community were those who were involved in the world of work. And as signori were those who sat in the councils and decided for the city. So Palazzo della Signoria, later Palazzo Vecchio, is the place where the government was hosted, the city hall of the city. The Republic of Florence, expression of the guilds and of those who were connected to the world of work. Now, Palazzo Vecchio or Palazzo della Signoria is also nowadays the place where the mayor of Florence controls the political imprinting of the city, and it is the place where many symbols are hosted inside, all of them talking about the republicanism, the freedom, the political liberty of the city of Florence. The Palazzo della Signoria was built in the 90s, and this is the moment in which Florence, like New York in the 1930s, like Chicago in the 1880s, was mostly built. Not only the town hall, but also the main basilicas, Santa Croce and Santa Maria Novella, were established at that period of time. And the heart, the political heart of the city is here. And the councils, the small and the large councils, were hosted periodically inside of the building, and the main politicians, the priors, were elected every 2 months. This because the city should have been guaranteed by the honesty of the politicians, and those who were elected could have had only a limited period of time to lead the state. In front of the main entrance of the building, you have the three main symbols of the city of Florence. The first one is the David by Michelangelo, and the second in the middle of the facade of the building is Judith and Holofernes by Donatello, and the third one is the Marzocco, or the lion, which has been carved by Donatello himself. And the three symbols are all of them connected to the identity, the political nature of the city of Florence. David, the biblical hero who wins on Goliath, simply throwing a stone. In practice, the loser who wins on the winner. And evidently, David is embodying the city of Florence himself. Not represented, created by Michelangelo, not created by Michelangelo as a real hero, but simply a handsome man, not in the act of throwing the stone, but simply in the act of controlling the space which is in front of himself. The other symbol is Judith, Judith winning on Holofernes. Judith, the biblical queen who wins on Holofernes, who tries to subvert the nature of the democratic nature of the community she was leading. And again, Judith, the weak woman holding a sword, who is ready to behead Holofernes, wins on tyranny, wins on those who wanted to subvert the republicanism of the city of Florence. The third symbol is the Marzocco, the lion, and the lion evidently represents or is the symbol of strength. Now I'm thinking to Walt Disney and the Lion King. No? So in the collective imagination of people, the lion represents the strength by default, par excellence, and evidently the symbol of the city of Florence, embodied by the lion, represents in itself the symbol of political control on the community. The space in front of us is the square which in the past is the platform through which the state expressed itself, and is a place where people were hosted to vote for the community. So in other words, people met outside and standing or voting through ballots could decide for the community. And when the decisions was made, evidently this entered into the state, was re-voted by the councils, and it arrived to the priors, who were those who had the charge of putting into practice the final decision taken by the councils. So the Republican system is embodied by the priors. The priorate is the tenure which makes this republicanism existing, and evidently this embodies in itself a symbol of proto-democracy. The entrance of the Palazzo della Signoria expresses the nature of the city of Florence, because it quotes directly, and it goes directly to the symbol of Christianity, the main symbol of Christianity, Christ, because the inscription tells Rex Regum et Dominus Dominantium, which means in English, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, because Christ in the collective imagination of Christianity represents the gate, no? And soon you are passing from the gate, from the outside to the inside. You are entering in one of the most sacred possible kind of building in the city of Florence, even if you are not in a church. So the Rex Regum et Dominus Dominantium represents in itself what Florence wants to tell everybody in terms of relationship between political power, Christianity, and the nature of the city. And Palazzo Vecchio, be it a civic building, is more sacred than any possible kind of cathedral. So we cannot violate it. When the Palazzo della Signoria was built, Florence was one of the most important centers in all Christianity, and its merchants were used to traveling all over the known world, from Central Europe, Northern Europe, north of Africa. All the known world was contaminated by the ability of the Florentine merchants to import the main material from all over the known world. Colors from the eastern part of the world, and of course silver and gold from Africa. And evidently the nature and the size of Palazzo Vecchio represents and embodies this kind of greatness. The facade of the Palazzo della Signoria perfectly expresses the need of the Florentine Republic to be clear with its citizens, and the balcony is the evidence of the relationship between the inside and the outside. We have to imagine this part of the facade as the real megaphone through which all politicians could give their final speech before the election, as well as should have been in the need of repressing dissent, every possible kind of public execution, which was announced by the balcony of the Palazzo della Signoria. So it means that the Republic uses the facade as a theatrical representation of its governmental quality. And the symbols which are above the crenellation are again another evidence of the quality of the Florentine political power. From the left to the right, you have the main symbols of the Florentine political system. And the fifth one from the left, gold written in a blue field, tells us that Florence was a free city, libertas, freedom. Florence expressed itself, defined itself, sold itself to its citizens as a free community, free from any possible kind of dictatorship. The Loggia della Signoria was planned and projected for representing and hosting the Florentine Republicanism, and it was starting in 1376 and finished in 1382. It is exactly in the middle of the so-called Ciompi uprising, and it is the stage from which the government was used to talking, expressing itself in front and to the citizens. The Loggia della Signoria is a real stage, is a stage before Google from which the government could express itself. Inside of the Loggia della Signoria we have many symbols, because when Cosimo I was elected Duke of Florence, it was transformed in a sort of open museum in which many works of art collected by the Medici family could have been hosted. And one of them, which was carved by Benvenuto Cellini in 1545 and finished in the middle of the 1550s, is the Perseus and Medusa. And again, here we have the symbol of Florence, the Perseus, ready to behead Medusa, the main enemy of every possible kind of community led and controlled and guided by the good government. It is in the 8th century that we have the evidence of a small parish in this area of Florence between Via dei Calzaioli, the street of the shoemakers, and the Piazza della Repubblica, which is the old market of the city of Florence. And it is Giovanni Villani, the main chronicler of the city of Florence, who describes the evolution of this church, which was already in honor of Saint Michael Archangel, to be transformed into a grain market. We are in the 1240s, and the works were ended at the end of the 1200s. So this small parish was first transformed into a grain market controlled by the state of Florence. One of the reasons and the keys to understand the Florentine Renaissance lies exactly in this place, because before being a real church, which was established later in 1343, this was a grain market of the city, and it was controlled by the state of Florence, which means that the quantity of resources in terms of foodstuff were shared in equal parts among the Florentine citizens, no matter if you were rich or if you were poor. So this is another way to understand the Renaissance in Florence. The grain market was then transformed in 1343 into the most important church or parish devoted to the guilds of Florence, the Church of Saint Michael, or Orsanmichele. And from 1343 onwards, this becomes the Church of the Guildsmen of the city of Florence. And surrounding the small square, which was presumably designed by Arnolfo di Cambio, one of the most important architects of Florence, who was living between the end of the 1200s and the beginning of the 1300s, it was transformed into the real heart of the community, because the guilds would have been hosted inside of this church, and all the guildsmen could have been pardoned by the sins they had committed on earth. One of the most beautiful works of art of the Renaissance, the statue in honor of Saint George. And on the bottom of the statue we have the story, which tells how and the ways through which Saint George the knight was able to set free the community led by the Queen of Salem, by the dragon, which is killed by himself in an act of war. No? And St. George becomes almost automatically the symbol of the world of work, of the Florentine identity, but mostly of the workers of the city of Florence, St. George. Bound to the church of Orsanmichele is one of the most important headquarters of one of the main guilds of the city of Florence, the Wool Guild, Arte della Lana. And every guild in the city of Florence had its own headquarters, and evidently being this one of the most beautiful and joyful buildings in the city, it reveals the political impact and the quality, the economical quality of the guild itself. Now it is the Society of Dante Studies, but in the past it was the place where the guildsmen involved in the textile industry, devoted to the wool industry, were used to meeting and developing the strategies to attract their products all over the known world and the market. We are in Piazza del Duomo, the sacred square of the city of Florence, and exactly in front of the Baptistry, which is the oldest monument of this city. The Baptistry is built in the 8th century after Christ, and it served until recent times to baptize all the Florentine people. This square hosts the Cathedral of Florence as well as the Tower of Giotto, and it represents and embodies in itself the sacred space of the community. Close to the Baptistry and the Cathedral, there is a Brotherhood of Mercy, which was established in 1244, and it served as a hospital for the city of Florence to cure all those who were traveling from a place to another, as well as the Florentine citizens. Through the money of the guilds, it worked this way. Guildsmen enrolled in a guild gave part of their income to the guild, and the guild reinvested part of the money which was earned through the collection of taxes of the guildsmen into the community for building what? Hospitals, schools, infrastructures of every kind. For example, fountain in the middle of the squares, as well as common places to represent and embody the good government of the community. The Baptistry is an octagon, and one of the parts of it represents the Gate of Paradise. And here we go into a really interesting story to understand how the Renaissance was made of geniuses. The competition was open to the main masters of the city, and the short race was between Ghiberti and Brunelleschi. Ghiberti is the winner, but when he hears that the second one is Brunelleschi, he asks his fellow to follow him and share the commission. And of course, the reply of Brunelleschi was the following: two geniuses cannot work together. And Ghiberti finished and finalized the Gates of Paradise. It is from the first centuries of the Christian era that we have evidence of a small church in the area of San Lorenzo, close to the square of the Dome, the cathedral. And it is in the 1420s that under the auspices of Giovanni di Bicci de' Medici, father of Cosimo the Elder, that Filippo Brunelleschi received the commission to reorganize this small parish in one of the most joyful, beautiful, elegant churches of the city of Florence. The facade talks to itself. It's unfinished, but it's so beautiful that we can perfectly understand and observe the sense of the beauty which was organized under the auspices of the Medici in the city of Florence at the beginning of the 1400s. When Cosimo the Elder took off in 1434, the church was ready to be concluded, and Filippo Brunelleschi became almost automatically the main architect of the family which was controlling the city of Florence. Cosimo the Elder died being named as the father of the fatherland, and there are historians who define him as a godfather, not in a negative way, but of course in a positive way, considering him as the person who created, through the network of supporters, the beauty of the city of Florence under the auspices of the Medici. Filippo Brunelleschi was considered a sort of fool, crazy architect. No one would have spent a dime on him. But Cosimo saw on him the potential to express, through the sense of the beauty which was in the area and in the air of the Renaissance, the greatness and the good government expressed by the Medici. The Church of San Lorenzo holds in itself the most important library, which was later established by Lorenzo the Magnificent. Collections of books, manuscripts coming from everywhere, from the known world, are inside of the library. And as we all know, the library in itself is a jewel, is a privilege for human beings, because through the library you have a sort of trade-union link between the past, the tradition, and the future. Thanks to the Lorenzian library, we have a huge quantity of manuscripts which are giving us the possibility of reading the past and knowing the knowledge of the different traditions of the ancient times. When Filippo Brunelleschi is commissioned to finalize and enlarge this beautiful church, the Medici family had already established one of the most important banks in the known world, in all Christianity. And the agencies of the bank are going from north of Europe to the extreme east, North Africa as well. And the ability of first Giovanni di Bicci the Medici and later his son Cosimo the Elder, who dies in 1464, is the creation of the network of supporters. The Medici established this kind of ability of creating supporters which gave them the possibility of controlling vast areas, economically, politically, and socially speaking. At the time of Cosimo the Elder, artists like Donatello worked for him, architects like Brunelleschi worked for him, and the gates of Palazzo Medici Riccardi could remain open because no one would have ever attacked someone of the Medici family, any member of the Medici family, because Cosimo was very good looking to the Florentine people. The fabric of the Medici Chapels starts at the beginning of the 1500s and continues until the end of the Medici Grand Duchy of Tuscany, with the death of the last Grand Duke, Gian Gastone, 1737. Inside of this beautiful monument, which is at the end of the Church of San Lorenzo, so we have the cemetery of the Medici family, from the Chapel of the Princes, where Lorenzo the Magnificent is buried, as well as from the chapel in which the Grand Dukes are buried. This is a symbol of the relationship between one of the most enlightened families in Europe and one of the most important countries in the world. The Medici Chapels underline the relationship between the family of the Medici and the city of Florence. This is also the place where Michelangelo was hiding himself during the siege of Florence at the end of the 1520s, when Florence was transforming its republican system into a ducal regime. Michelangelo was hiding himself because, being him defender of republicanism, he was convinced that the Medici would have been enthroned again as dukes, not anymore as first among equals, but dukes, would have sent into a death penalty. But the story is completely different, and the Medici transformed Michelangelo again into one of the most important geniuses of the Renaissance, commissioning him many works of art, among which, under the auspices of Clement VII, the Sistine Chapel in Rome.